You finally have a champion for workers in the White House, and instead of putting China first, I'm putting Michigan first, and I'm putting America first.
I think that we're absolutely running headfirst into a new golden age, infusing technology into these trades.
There's pride there. There's accomplishment, being able to take nothing and turn it into something.
Unilaterally throwing tariffs on friend who we make stuff with and foe that we want to make sure we're not dependent on is nuts economically.
The end game for me is keeping America number one.
President Donald Trump has a deep nostalgia for the America of the 1950s and 60s, the heyday of U.S. manufacturing, and the golden era of blue-collar America. I know what he means because I grew up in that era, right here at the epicenter of the U.S. auto industry outside Detroit, a place that has manufacturing in its very DNA. In those days, you could make a good living even working on the line at an auto factory. You could buy a house in a place like this and set up your family in comfort. Today, this area is ground zero for Trump's tariffs and for his whole campaign to make American manufacturing great again. If it is to succeed, it will have to happen in places like this.
They all want to come back to Michigan and build cars again. You know why? Because of our tax and tariff policy.
President Trump makes it sound like only he can bring back the blue-collar jobs that disappeared in the 80s and 90s, offshored to low-wage countries or replaced by automation. But has U.S. manufacturing really failed in the way that he sees it? The number of jobs has fallen sharply. At the same time, manufacturing is contributing more to the U.S. economy than ever before. Jobs may be down, but productivity is up. I wanted to find out the real story, right here in Macomb County, Michigan. It's a place Trump calls the heartland of our nation, a bellwether county that voted twice for Obama and 3 times for Trump. And it hosts key facilities for 3 of the big automakers, Ford, GM, and Stellantis. So what happened to all those jobs that provided such a good living? Do they still exist? What does manufacturing even look like nowadays?
My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day.
And what kind of impact is the president having, especially when it comes to tariffs?
Our country and its taxpayers have been ripped off for more than 50 years, but it is not going to happen anymore.
I start my journey at Atomic Industries because this is where the past meets the future.
And that milling head is actually rotating around and machining that block down to the end shape. And that shape is kind of dictated by our software.
This is a tool and die shop, reinvented for the modern era. Traditionally, these small, family-owned workshops design and make the tools and molds that are essential for high-volume manufacturing. It's a profession known for highly skilled craftsmanship, problem-solving, and precision. It used to be a time-consuming, iterative process.
This is for Miami-Dade's transit, so their subway system.
But in this workshop, they're trying to change that using AI.
Essentially what you have here is a plastic injection mold. So our software, our technology, is designing basically the perfect injection mold design for any given part geometry. So when we build these tools, they ultimately will produce a part 30, 40, 50% more efficiently than how tools are built and designed today.
The molds are constantly feeding temperature and pressure data back to the software, training themselves to be more efficient. Lou's partner, Aaron, has a background in physics and systems engineering. He worked on the self-driving car team at Google. He believes high-tech manufacturing companies like Atomic can bring back jobs. It's just that those jobs will now be more skilled and more productive.
Manufacturing, in an existential kind of way, helps determine your self-sufficiency, your freedom in some way as well. If you can't produce things, then you begin depending on somebody else. The idea of reindustrialization is important to maintain sovereignty, and also at the same time, on an economic level, can actually help rebuild the middle class.
Aaron wants to show that the U.S. really can compete.
To show people that it's actually possible to viably produce things here. There are ways to short-circuit a process that we outsourced somewhere else and bring it back here. We're kind of relying on what we're really good at, which is innovation, right? Using that in an applied setting to show people that I can actually produce parts as cheaply as China can, which nobody really believes, right, until we actually do it. So
you do it now?
Yeah.
Lou started out 30 years ago, following his dad into the trade without going to college. But he wants his own kids to get a degree, partly because he's sometimes felt looked down on for not having one himself.
My dad absolutely came up in this trade during the golden age of manufacturing and skilled trades and tool and die making, when words like apprentice and journeyman, people knew what that meant. Today, as we bring these jobs back, I think we're about to enter a new golden age of manufacturing. I wish my dad was here to see it, to be honest.
Fewer Americans nowadays are directly involved in making things. We've become a knowledge-based service economy.
I think over the last few years, Americans have rediscovered the need to make things in the United States. You had the pandemic, the shortages that produced. You had all sorts of supply chain disruptions around the world.
If we stay on the high end in America, which we can do, and we are doing in places like Macomb County, Michigan, where we're the brains of the industry, where we have the R&D, the prototyping, the engineering, the design, the marketing, and the critical pieces of production, then we will continue to earn high wages. This nostalgic encouragement that we can bring back the good old days when there are lots of high-paying jobs for people with very little skill in a manufacturing environment. It's just an illusion.
Macomb still has plenty of more traditional, less high-tech industries too, like Beta Steel. I'm skeptical about Trump's tariffs. Taxing imports will surely drive up prices along the supply chain, not to mention creating a more fractious world. But this is exactly the sort of business that tariffs are supposed to help.
The steel comes in as continuous coil, looks like a giant slinky. We unwind it, we pull it through a die, and we size it. We're essentially stretching the material.
Beta buys steel from mini mills, processes it, and sells it on. Their customers then make fasteners, nuts, bolts, and screws for the auto industry.
And some of the job is quite strenuous.
Yeah.
And these guys get beat up.
Scott's not against tariffs, but he's against too much uncertainty. At the start of the year, his plan was to get 65% of his raw materials from U.S. mills, with the rest coming from Canada and Mexico. Now, he's sourcing 85% from the U.S. That's after Trump raised steel tariffs from 25% to 50%. The problem is, U.S. mills can't keep up with the new demand, and Scott has to pass the increase in prices onto the customer.
Tariffs were set up to help companies like Beta. We're a domestic company selling domestic product to domestic customers. What's happened is the chaos that's been created, while as opposed to being rocket fuel, has caused uncertainty, apprehension, because no one knows how to respond, because they don't know what's coming next.
You've got to admire Scott's resilience. He knows of 3 competitors who have shut up shop in the last year.
We grind it out every day. And we tell the customer yes, get them off the phone, and then figured it out.
Scott learned the reins from his dad, who started the company with his business partner in the early 1970s. Now, his daughter Alexa has joined the family business.
I've seen the success my grandpa had, I see the success my dad has, and it was time to let me give it a shot and see what I can learn and go from there.
What was it that you liked about what you saw your dad doing?
I heard him on calls, I heard him on meetings, but what I also really liked growing up was he was at dinner every night, he was at all the sporting events, he was still around. He was running this company, but he was home.
These days, often the younger generation doesn't want to follow Dad into the factory or can't because of automation.
And that could be a serious problem for Trump's plan to revive American manufacturing. Most Americans believe more domestic manufacturing would be good for the country. It's just that they don't necessarily want to do the jobs themselves.
Nice to meet you. What was the drive out?
I've come to meet Vaughn to see what a 30-year career in the auto industry can offer and why that's not appealing to his son. He shows me his 1979 Corvette.
I've had her for 20 years.
Oh, yeah? A snowmobile in the garage.
They do snowmobile races out on the lake.
And a pontoon boat parked on the canal out back.
That's the party boat, right?
When Vaughn voted for Trump last year, he had recently started working as a manufacturing manager for a stamping and prototyping facility. But after the tariff announcements, orders dried up, and he lost his job. Last one in, first one out. It's the latest phase of a career that's been rewarding and punishing. It all started at American Axle.
A lot of us built our lives, started families based on that job. It was a hot, tough job. Definitely not like what you see in facilities now where it's all automated, climate controlled. There was none of that. This was, straight tough work. Sledgehammers, a lot of hot machinery.
Vaughn had to have back surgery after all that sledgehammer work. But his first big career upheaval came in 2008, when American Axle workers went on strike over wages.
We're stealing this.
That was just ahead of the full-blown financial crisis, when GM and Chrysler, now Stellantis, teetered on the brink of bankruptcy.
I remember it sucking so bad because I was on strike, divorced, single dad. I remember having some very emotional times.
Vaughn took a $140,000 payout and retrained as a paramedic. But with the pay and hours not working out, he took himself back to school to get a management degree.
Like I have a saying, right? Build a bank, I'm getting in. Build a prison, I'm getting out. So when there's a problem, I like to think that I can find a solution.
After all of his own ups and downs, Vaughn never wanted his son to go into manufacturing.
Look at that. Nothing.
He helped him get a welding job, but only so he could see how miserable it was. Now, ironically, Vaughn works for his son, making a bit of money building kitchen cabinets while he looks for another job. It's Father's Day, and we head out to the waterfront. I want to know more about why Vaughn's son, who's also named Vaughn, didn't want to follow in his father's footsteps. It all goes back to that strike at American Axle.
Seeing your dad stand around a garbage bin with a bunch of random dudes, I guess isn't the best look. After all that, it kind of sucked too, It wasn't that great of a time.
Now here I am again, asking myself yet that same question. Where am I going to be in another 10 years?
How do you feel about employing your dad now?
I just think it's fun, we get to do stuff like that together, How many father and sons can do that?
I'm super proud of him, and I'm glad he's not in manufacturing, so he's got his whole future ahead of him. We don't realize the power of our youth until it's gone, right?
I graduated from high school in the 1970s. Back then, my peers could make more money going into manufacturing than I ever would as a journalist. Now, those jobs have not only lost their prestige, there's even a little stigma. And at the start of the year, there were 500,000 openings nationwide. At the Macomb County Executive, they're talking up Industry 4.0, where new-collar jobs blend traditional manufacturing with high-tech. And average earnings in manufacturing are more than $100,000 a year. Today, it's not just about servicing the automotive industry. Companies have diversified into aerospace, defense, and robotics, too.
Industry 4.0 is eliminating manual labor, but it's creating jobs on the back end in automation and robotics, where, ultimately you've got the next robotics programmer taking place of what Grandpa did, 40-some years ago.
Macomb really does still make things. The number of automotive jobs now is around the same as it was at the industry's peak in 1979. One looming problem, though, is the aging workforce.
We actually call it the silver tsunami. Just the sheer number of individuals that are 55 plus that are thinking about retirement. We know we've got this window of 5 to 10 years to find individuals that want to replace them.
Vicki is another local with manufacturing in her DNA. Her dad started out on the assembly line at Chrysler. And I'm struck once again that this attachment to manufacturing is deep and personal.
You know, so many individuals came here for the jobs because they wanted to create a better life for their families. So manufacturing for us isn't just about making an end item, it's about making a home, a household. And so there's a heart to that.
A lot of it is about intent. Do we have the intent to allow young people to pursue technical training and view that as a win? Because I think too many people don't view that as a win right now. It's not inevitable that this is a sector that's going to decline, but are we going to fight for these jobs? That's the most important question.
The country's deep manufacturing roots are nowhere clearer than at my next stop, the Detroit Arsenal, where the U.S. Army contracted Chrysler to mass-produce tanks in World War II. MTech is part of the Macomb County Community College. In this class, students are learning to program and operate the CNC machines. Graduates could soon be taking home upwards of $36 an hour. That's more than they'd likely earn in retail, hospitality, or other service jobs.
It started like this, and it ended like this, and I did it, so.
Christina was a stay-at-home mother for 9 years, but she'd always wanted to follow her dad.
My dad worked in a small shop when I was growing up. He still works there. And back before everything was computerized, he would bring blueprints home and lay them out on the kitchen table after dinner and go over it, and I would just go over it with him. I fell in love with it.
Did her peers in high school also go into manufacturing?
No, most of my friends either picked random jobs here and there, like one's a nanny, one's a bank teller. The rest all went to college and have massive debt.
It's a career she thinks she can rely on.
There's always going to be a job somewhere. Even with how robotic everything is going, there's just so many gaps that you need people for. You can't fill everything with a computer and with a robot.
If U.S. manufacturing really is going to succeed, then it will need the pride of the old and the hope of the future.
The machines just becomes an extension of yourself. So even though it's cutting the parts, I'm the one making it. There's pride there. There's accomplishment. I'm being able to take nothing and turn it into something. Turn it into whatever you want.
Macomb's not the only kind of Rust Belt story.
It's very inappropriate to say this is all a monolith of a Rust Belt. There are towns and cities that are thriving in the Midwest in a high-tech, globalized, knowledge-driven economy, but there are many, many more who have lost their anchor employers and still are in decline.
Saginaw was once a thriving auto parts making town, but as production moved to lower-cost regions, there were mass layoffs. But even here, there are companies trying to compete on the world stage. After joining forces with some local toolmakers to help the war effort in the 1940s, Patrick's grandfather switched from his toy business to tools.
So it's got lights and sophisticated cameras.
Just like the other companies we visited, the machines here are not U.S. made. This one is German. A worker would take 15 to 20 minutes to check the tooling. The machine?
2.5 minutes.
Fullerton's precision tools are used to make everything from automobiles to airplanes, molds to medical devices, like my own bionic hip.
The knowledge we gain in helping a customer and, let's say, making a hip or a knee will help us help a customer making an airplane part.
A single employee can run several of the $500,000 CNC machines at a time. Patrick says manufacturing domestically protects supply chains for defense and other critical industries, but it's also a matter of innovation.
I don't care how cheap their labor is. If they can do it smarter, better, wiser, and faster, and of higher quality, they can win, and they can take market share and gain business with global competitors all over the world.
But when President Trump talks about bringing back jobs, can he really recreate the old days?
It's different jobs. It's not the same jobs. If you look at the shop today, it's actually pristine. You can eat off the floors. And that's because of the new technology. I need to compete globally, and I need talent. And I need all kinds of talent.
We've come here to the Detroit River to show you just how close together
the US and Canada truly are. Right here, it's less than a mile between Detroit and Windsor. And they're interconnected not just geographically, but also economically. The same auto part might cross this border 6 or 8 times before it goes into a finished vehicle.
There is no such thing as an American-made car. We make cars together with our partners around the globe. Unilaterally throwing tariffs on friend who we make stuff with and foe that we want to make sure we're not dependent on alike is nuts economically. It drives up costs for everybody, and it means a diminished economic pie is baked around the world.
I believe that sensible tariffs are part of the solution. If you look at the advertising of automobile companies, they're trying to crawl over each other to say how American their cars are and how many jobs they're supporting here. And the truth is, the companies that have less import exposure are going to do better.
In the Prohibition era, my grandmother used to smuggle liquor across this border. But in recent decades, the fate of these two economies has become much more intertwined than that. The new Gordie Howe Bridge was supposed to be a symbol of interconnectedness. But Trump's tariffs, not to mention his claims on Canada as the 51st state, makes me wonder about that.
This is Detroit, 12th largest city in the world.
What about manufacturing in the Motor City itself? Detroit, the original heart of the auto industry.
And today those mills and factories are producing at an all-time high.
Civil rights leaders make a joint condemnation of the violence and call...
Manufacturing began to desert the city in the 1950s and 60s amid racial tensions and riots. The automakers wanted bigger, newer plants in places like Macomb. For a long time, abandoned factories like this were the symbol of urban decay here. But in the last decade or so, young people have been moving back to the city. Ford has converted Michigan Central Station into an innovation hub, and I'm heading next door to New Lab to meet 2 guys from New York who started off in e-bikes. Justin and Chris now matchmake other companies with suppliers, manufacturers, and distributors, all based in the US. It's all about hardware, from e-bikes to drones, robots to telescopes.
A lot of times if there's defense applications, they might have more requirements around domestic manufacturing.
These two aren't Trump voters, so I'm interested to hear why they are so in favor of reshoring jobs, and in favor, mostly, of Trump's tariffs.
We are really stuck on manufacturing being based on low-cost labor. But if we think about the future of manufacturing in the US, it's going to be built on the tools of tomorrow and not the tools of yesterday.
What's starting to happen more and more is unlocking quite a bit of untapped potential in both the buildings and the people and a lot of what exists in this ecosystem.
The reality is most trade over the past several decades has largely been based on loopholes and low-cost labor. And it hasn't really been such a level playing field in the way that different countries pull strings and do dumping and all these sort of things.
We are not saying that we are going to be able to create, as a country, the entire supply chain for a lot of this technology. This is going to continue to depend on a very globalized world going forward, right?
But in Detroit, there's ready access to both facilities and workforce.
Especially as hardware gets smarter and more complicated and all these pieces of it, to have that feedback loop closer, there's a lot of benefit.
We're solving some of the biggest challenges this world has ever faced. And we need to be doing that in the most effective and efficient way possible. And that means that we need to be innovating on not just what we're making, but how we're making it.
Up on the roof, I find Aerial Loop, a drone delivery and logistics company. It's a South American company, but they want to manufacture in the US.
And the landing spot is over here.
Not just because of tariffs, but so it's easier to pass regulatory hurdles. And so they're close to their biggest market. They're test flying their delivery drone. It's on its way to a sprawling factory complex a few blocks away. But that's where we're heading too. Because this is the kind of place where legacy infrastructure and new tech-driven startups come together in what they're calling micro-factories.
My father and uncle bought the facility in the early 80s. At the time, it was a full manufacturing facility. We had
hundreds of machines in here that would stamp out car parts for the big three automakers. Doors, fenders, hoods, deck lids, bumpers, all kinds of parts for vehicles.
Apostolos remembers running around here as a 9-year-old. In the late 80s and 90s, the 13-acre site had up to 350 employees. Manufacturing came to a halt in the financial crisis of 2008, but even then, the site survived by turning into a warehouse and distribution center. Now, Apostolos wants to bring manufacturing back. The aim is for these bays to house microfactories, allowing early-stage tech startups access to cranes, power, and flexible short-term leases. One of the first tenants is Electric Outdoors, which builds off-grid camping systems.
Many manufacturers, especially in their early stages of life, can't afford to go out and build some gigafactory type facility and hope for the best. So we have started building and creating these microfactories within our building, allowing smaller companies the opportunity to utilize what a big factory normally would have, but in a smaller scale.
The building echoes with history. When the factory urgently expanded during World War II, they didn't have time to demolish this church, so they built over it.
The facility was manufacturing parts for airplane wings, parts for tanks. We were even assembling ammunition in this building.
And these old die-cast machines have been put back to use stamping out metal parts for classic cars.
This is part of a trunk, a deck lid on a classic car.
So does Apostolos think we're at the start of a new era?
It is. Almost like a rising of the phoenix, a resurgence of manufacturing here in the U.S. and specifically in the Detroit area.
It's just that also those are not going to bring back the kind of jobs that were here when you were a little boy.
It won't bring back necessarily the number of jobs when I was a little boy in the actual manufacturing process, but now the products that are being produced require many jobs outside of this envelope, outside of this environment. I've seen this movie before, and it hasn't always ended well, but this has a feeling of definite success.
The microfactories are, well, inevitably small scale, so I want to check out one more company back in Macomb that's much more established. RCO makes seats for the auto and aerospace industry, as well as brackets and other components. It uses a whole heap of technology, both advanced and more traditional. Sheet metal fabrication, injection molding, precision CNC, and 3D printing.
These will end up in large cabin passenger jets, primarily business jets.
RCO's aerospace division has 72 suppliers. 95% of them are based in the U.S.
This is absolutely proof of concept that things can be made economically here in Michigan and in North America. You know, we think it's important to source here locally. We have control of the supply chain from a delivery and quality perspective and cost.
So what are the main priorities?
So the order I would say is talent, tax reform, and trade. Actually, I'm going to go tax reform, talent, and trade.
Okay. Jeff is convinced tax is the key. He was happy that Trump's big, beautiful bill reinstated immediate tax deductions for R&D expensing and thinks it will really spur innovation.
These tariffs aren't a huge thing yet. And, you know, it's hard to forecast what a tariff and its impact because they change like the weather at the moment.
The other priority is attracting talent. And down on the shop floor, that means people like Jackie.
They go from there. And they'll come to me when they get to something that they have never done before.
Jackie started in manufacturing just over 10 years ago, getting a job through a temping agency. Now she's a supervisor. She's from Louisiana, so doesn't have a manufacturing background, but her son has now followed in her footsteps. The job has changed her life.
There's kind of no limit. There's so many different avenues that you can take within a company. You not only have engineers, but you have process writers, you have builders, you have electricians, you have sales. It allows you to be able to provide a better life.
Are you able to buy a house and stuff like that?
I bought a house, yes. I purchased a house. Whenever there's something that I want, I can get it. Not only are my children very proud of me, my family is very proud, And I am very proud of myself. I'm very happy in my life right now.
The doom and gloom from the Trump White House about U.S. manufacturing just doesn't ring true here in Macomb County. It's not just that people still make things here, it's that they make them in this really space age kind of way. Everybody here, Republicans and Democrats, wants to bring industry back home to America, even if it means new tariffs. But nobody, apart from maybe President Trump, thinks that will automatically restore the blue-collar utopia of the 1960s. He's looking backwards. Places like this are looking to the future.
My last stop is at Coney Island hot dog restaurant.
It's really nice to see you.
Hello, Patty.
Yeah.
Where I'm meeting two auto workers who've both recently retired. Tom spent his career at GM. Chris worked for Chrysler. Tom is a Democrat, Chris is a Republican. So really, I want to talk about Trump.
That little table for this big guy.
Especially the question of tariffs and whether, in the long term, they will help or hurt.
He doesn't exactly couch things and say things the way that I would want them to be said. But at the end of the day, is it something that needs to be done? Is he getting it done after we've had 60 years of presidents who couldn't get it done? Yes. For the first time, I hear people on the talking head news shows and stuff, and they're saying things like non-tariff barriers. And I'm like, yeah, that happened because Trump started talking about this stuff.
I used to think of the president right underneath Jesus. There was God, Jesus, and the president of the United States. It's the way I felt. Mm-hmm. And I seem to be slipping from that, and I hate to feel that way. And screw, I grew up in Southwest Detroit, and I fought the bullies. I don't care for bullies, and that's the problem. That's a big problem I have with the situation.
You got to get in there and triage and just get attention and get people to the table. He's got to open up eyes with big, massive tariffs. And then I think the nuance comes in, all right, we're going to put it on pause for a month and we're going to do some more negotiation. And I think you hammer something good out of that.
I play chess, not checkers. And that's what this looks like to me. If you think it's 50%, then so be it. But don't do 50 and then come back and do 10 2 weeks later. Because I'll tell you what happens. It creates uncertainty in the market. You talked about the triage. It's a triage. You still got surgeons to do the right part. You know?
The end game for me is keeping America number one. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you got to remember, a lot of those revolutionary guys, I'm sure, were pretty rough around the edges.
I'm sure.
So.
Do you want either of you want your kids to work in manufacturing?
My son, he doesn't. He's actor on Broadway, by the way. That's pretty cool. They don't want that job, and it's sad because that was the jobs to have. You know, you hire in, and you start a family, and you get you a house and a car, and it just...
Walter P. Chrysler made a quote that I love. He was originally an engineer in a train yard. And he said that in creating, there is a creative joy that only a poet is supposed to know. Someday, I would like to teach a poet how to build a locomotive. I think it's one of the most important things we do in this country, and it gets no respect.
If there are some price adjustments as the results of the tariffs, I also believe that we'll have better jobs, and that's more money being circulated in the economy.
I don't think we're going to get 1963 again. Everything's different. Nothing's the same. Better, smarter, faster.
We want to improve efficiency. We want to improve quality. There's collateral damage to that, and some of it will be jobs, right?
And I think what we're doing in many ways is helping to democratize the tools of industry to actually be able to build things in a new and meaningful way.
But you have to be the best in the world, and you have to take it to the next level, and then you can sell it competitively.
This journey back to where I grew up has surprised me, not least because everyone I've spoken with across the political spectrum supports the idea of reshoring jobs.
Doing the kind of job that sprung the luxuries loose for every man.
Actually, I don't think reshoring is what they really mean. It's not bringing back old jobs, it's creating advanced new jobs. What comes through loud and clear is that these people think making things is good for the soul, not just the economy. I agree with them on that. I hope we can succeed at making American manufacturing great again, because of Trump, or more likely, in spite of him.